I'm a pastor, an artist, an author, a scholar, and a conversation. Welcome to Chatfest with Kenneth. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chatfest with Kenneth. And for this episode, we actually are having a discussion about the Ijaw Nation. Yes, that's right. You heard me right. So the Ijaws are a tribe in Nigeria, and that's where I am originally from. And I have a panel of to have a conversation on this topic. So without further ado, here is introducing my panel of participants to indulge in this conversation. Okay, hello viewers, and so these are my esteemed guests of panelists today to talk about the Ijaw Nation. And like I said earlier in the introduction, Ijaw is a tribe in Nigeria, but my esteemed gentleman here can add more information to that. But before we start, could we introduce ourselves, please, starting from the top? Bishop.
Bishop.
Okay, you know I should start.
Yes, please.
Okay, I am Bishop Samson Amajene. I am from Baramatu Kingdom, Warri Southwest local government area of Delta State. Um, both my both of my parents are Ijaw, so I am a typical or a pure Ijaw blood. I'm an Ijaw man to the core, and also uh, by way of my love for Ijaw Nation and Ijaw National Affairs. I've worked with the elders of Ijaw Nation back home. I happen to be the chaplain of the Council of Traditional Elders, Traditional Rulers and Elders, CITRE, which is the apex body in Ijaw Nation.
Wow.
And also, I am the founder and president of Ijaw Pastors and Ministers Fellowship. And currently, we are working on having Ijaw Pastors and Christian Diaspora Organization. Also, because of my love for Ijaw Nation, we went on to form Ijaw Oil and Gas Producing Communities, which is a body we use in agitating and advocating for the development of the oil producing communities back in Nigeria. I belong to several other organizations. I'm a clergyman and a social advocate
Okay.
and a peace ambassador.
Welcome aboard.
Mhm.
Well,
Thank
to my gentleman, the Tahiti Beach.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lawrence Daria. My particular village is called Asamabri, Sagwama local government area. My dad and my mom both are from the same village. So any part of the village I go to, they embrace me.
Okay.
100% Ijaw.
Okay.
Over the years, I've involved myself in several Ijaw organizations, Ijaw Nation, different other groups. The list is long.
Okay.
But I've never shied away from Ijaw issues. Each time we had problems, I've been there. The problems we had at Ajigunle, I was there in Lagos. The one that Baramatu was bombed by federal government, and we had to run around and uh, call people here and there and all of that. So in other words, all the issues that have been involving Ijaw people, I've been there, doing my little bit from this part of the world, even though I don't visit the land more often than I would like to, but I've always associated myself with Ijaw issues. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, sir. And Presido.
Okay. My name is Edmund Yoha. My dad is from OD, which is the Kolokoma or Pokoma local government area. My mom is from Agbere. And so they're both Ijaw. And she's also from Trofani, the Patani area. And they passed a long time ago, but I think probably spent, I'll say 5 to 6 years in the village, and which is pretty much my experience and exposure to the Ijaw Nation. Um, in terms of pursuing Ijaw issues, I've never really been involved. I think I only got involved maybe the past 3 or 4 years, focusing on Ijaw issues. Other than that, I've more so been involved in state issues. The last time I was in an organization was when there was no Bayelsa State. It was River State. And I was the treasurer of River State Forum, which was a long time ago. And I've been on the road traveling a long time. And I think I've just been settled maybe the past 8 years. And I've been gone for a long, long time. I left Nigeria when I was probably 21, and I've been gone for almost 40 years. I probably go back every 3 or 4 or 5 years. And now that I'm older and more settled, and starting to realize that, hey, people got me forward to where I am today, and I need to get people that are younger in the next generation next to the next level.
Amen.
Which is why I'm now more involved in specific Ijaw issues instead of looking at state issues. So
You are the president of
yeah,
in that part.
and I'm the president of Izon Association of Washington D.C. area. So with that, I think that's getting more involved in Ijaw issues.
Okay, thank you. Welcome aboard. And my uncle below.
It's muted on.
Myself,
Okay.
yes. Okay, it's been established that all of us are Izon, so I'll follow the traditional method. Izon.
Hey.
Yeah.
Izon.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Benevi Benatario Groko. Hail from Torangema, Delta State, from the same village with the host. In fact,
Yes. We're from the same village.
The host is my cousin. His dad, call him, was a good cousin of my late dad. So they used to move together while he was in the UK and everything. I've been a member of various organizations, Ijaw organizations in the UK and in Nigeria. I was the former president of, former secretary of the Ijaw People Association. And I was again called in to come and do some secretary work for the Ijaw People Association, United Kingdom. And in that capacity, I've met with loads of Ijaw people in the US. I remember the days of organizing a Borough Day. We used to come over to the US, New Jersey, Newark.
Okay.
Yeah, so I met loads of them. I recognize Lawrence Daria's name. I haven't seen him face before, but I recognize the name, so I must have met him somewhere.
My
I've
name is
interacted
Maurice.
with, yes, I've interacted with quite a number of our people trying to move the Ijaw Nation forward, whether it's in Nigeria, United Kingdom, or the USA. So I know a lot of the key people who are trying to move the Izon forward. So that's me. I'm an environmental scientist, at the same time an Ijaw Pan-Africanist as well, activist, trying to make the world a better place for our people, Black people, and human beings. So that is me.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. And you are the only person in this panel who is in the UK. The rest of us are all in the US.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted to mention that. So let's jump right into it. So I
It's,
know
it's
I kind of,
bedtime for him, so
I'm sorry?
it's bedtime, almost bedtime for him. So
Yes, it is. So I know I kind of did a preliminary introduction of the Ijaws, and all I said was just a tribe in Nigeria. Does anybody want to expatiate on my introduction of the Ijaws, or is that sufficient enough?
It's insufficient. Okay.
Okay.
I would, if I had my little piece there, the Ijaws are an ethnic nationality situated in the Niger Delta.
Okay.
Um, from your little introduction, you said that we trace back to the 15th century, but our history goes way beyond that. So we, our our oral traditions go back at least 2,000 years, and from archaeological evidence, we've got traces of our continuous settlement in the Niger Delta going back 2,000 years. That's for Ijaw people itself. It's
Okay.
for those human beings, which most probably are the same Ijaw people. We may go back to 3,000 years, but our towns and villages, some of the ancient towns and villages that have continuous settlement going back all the way to at least 700, 600
Okay. So
PE.
now that
So we are a people. We are a people. People call us an ancient people. So we are an ethnic nationality in our own right. Thank you.
okay, so I'm going to jump right in there then. Since you say we go back that far, so my two question prong is: are we located just in Nigeria or on the coastal region of Africa, and how further on, or is it just in Nigeria? And then secondly, why, as far back as since we are so early in our history and heritage, why is our population minimal?
Um, Again, I wouldn't say that our population is that minimum. It's just our population is a reflection of the type of counting they do in Nigeria right now. So we're supposedly the fourth largest tribe, but no one has really done a proper count of as to how many each and everybody is. So um, the statistics say that we're 10% of the population. So if we are 10% of the population, which was
200
several
million.
years, yeah, several years ago, whatever the population of Nigeria is now, we're 10% of it. Hmm? But Nigeria's population is grossly inflated. Hmm? So I wouldn't use the 200 million figure, but
Okay.
I'm mostly settled for like 150 million right now. So if as 150 million people with 10% of that, so we're most probably 15 million. So 15 million people, not a small population.
Yeah,
Uh,
15 million. I
Scot,
think
Scot,
that's what
yeah,
Wikipedia.
Scotland, Scotland in the UK is roughly 3 million people. So it's a nation in itself.
Okay.
So as 15 million people, um, if we're up to 15 million people, we're quite large as a group of people, as an ethnic nationality in the world.
Okay.
Mm? So we're compared to the others, the Igbos and the Yorubas, uh, their figures are also tampered with. Mm? But we can compare. Maybe they might be 10 or 15 million more than us. So sometimes, so that's it. So our population is not that small. But at the same time, in the past, people have been counting Ijaws, other Ijaws as belonging to, for example, some of these sub Ijaw groups. Some of them have
Okay,
not been counted.
before we segue down there, I want to hear from others in the panel too. So, what do you think about our history, heritage, and population?
Um, okay, you want to go first? Go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard, I mean, I haven't done any research, that we may be originally from the Congo area. I know how true that is because I haven't done any research. And then in terms of population, I mean, you can, once again, the way I think is from a worldview standpoint, if we are mostly in the riverine areas, and if you look at Brazil, look at Norway, any people that are based in the riverine areas, they have less of a population compared to the inland areas. And we are a natural, our DNA is, we're sort of a migrating group. If you're a migrating group, you don't have that big of a population. So you have to take that as a factor as well. But I've been looking at population figures, and I think combined, they say we're anywhere from 14 to 20
Yep,
million.
that's what I saw online too.
Yeah, and that's not small. If you look at Norway, which is doing very well, they're only 5 million. 5 million people can do that
In the
regular.
entire country?
Yes, it's only 5 million.
Wow.
And 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 so if we have 14, 15 million, if we have our heads together, we should be able to have a nation.
Wow. Okay. Uncle Lawrence?
Yeah, actually, he took that off my mouth. I was going to talk about our uh, immigrant migrating nature because we are into occupations that have to do with water. So we move around a lot. As a matter of fact, I believe that there are some Ijaws that are settled way up the River Niger, up to Benue and all those places. Uh, Even my family, we did not research it yet because there was nothing written down. Uh, my father's name is Sado. My father's uh, elder sister's name is Awusa. All the names are Hausa names, so we do not know the connection. But then by the time we realized the fact that we needed to work on the history, they are all dead. So we don't have the history of how those names came about. But one thing that I know is during those migrating uh, days, the early days, they would use this large, they're like home-like canoes. They are canoes, but they are built, they have sleeping quarters and all of that. And they go during certain seasons to up, up, up Niger River, up to places like Lokoja and all those places. They cash, sell, trade, and after the season, they start coming right back. But we believe very strongly that there are some that never made it back. Probably they became, more settled and prosperous, or intermarried and decided to stay up the river.
Okay.
So we are anywhere you find river, you will see Ijaw people settled somewhere around there. This goes all the way to Akwa Ibom State, uh, all the way to Cameroon, and then on the western side, all the way to Togo, Dahomey, and all those areas, you will see Ijaw settlements. In
Okay.
any creek, any riverine area, you see Ijaw settlements. So that is one of the reasons why our population too is scattered. Um, what our brother shared is just it's a fraction. We are all over the place. We are all over the place. And That is one of the things where we seem not to have a stable culture where we actually develop properly as Ijaw people. And
Okay.
that is one of the things we are suffering even up to now.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we are going to get into that. Um, one question that I think I brought up with my cousin that is in a private conversation was in my research on the Ijaw culture, Ijaw nation. I discovered that it is documented that the Ijaws were among the first tribe to associate with the colonialists when they arrived to colonize Africa. They're among the first. They're among the first to interact with them. And so we know from history, they came, they initially integrated with us, and next thing they know, they started raping us and um, taking people and selling. Yet, for some reason, it seems the Ijaws were never, I don't have any documentation. I haven't seen any documentation of the Ijaws being sold into slavery. There is documentation of Yorubas, Igbos. When people do their lineage tests from here, they trace it back to Igbo, they trace it back to Yoruba. But it just seems the Ijaws were not touched. So something is amiss in my mind. Like, okay, these are the people who first contacted the whites. Why didn't the whites sell them into slavery? Why did they choose other tribes and not the Ijaws? So what's the answer? What do you guys say to that?
Well, let me come in at this point. Basically, I still want to say something about the history, the historical fact
Okay.
about the Jaws, and I want to thank the co-panelists for you know giving elaborate definition, if I should say, about our geographical location, how we came about, and all that. But beside that, we also look at the Bible and we find that the Jaws, they have their root also in the Bible. If we There's this school of thought that it's most likely that the origin of the Jaw man is from Israel. But I don't know how that is, but it's from Israel. So when you look at the Bible, you find the name Izon. If you look at First King chapter uh, 15, verse 20, you find it there. You go to Second King chapter 15, verse 29, you find it there. And if you go to Second Chronicles chapter 16, verse 4, you also find it there. The only thing there is that they use J instead of Z. So the Ijaw people have their root, you know, from Israel. They have their root also from Israel. And that is why the name Izon is a godly name. The name Izon is a godly name. It stands, it's interpreted truth. So you find out that the German is given to truth. You hardly find a German given to lies and hypocrisy. It's only nowadays that people are beginning to deviate from that cultural attribute that the German is known with. The German does not really believe in fetish uh, and all these kind of things. It's of late that you find our people getting involved with um, some of these vices that are strange to the culture and the traditional belief of the German. And that is because in the DNA of the German, you find God. You find God at the center of the Jaw community.
I'm going to
Uh,
interrupt you here because it was something you're saying. In my research, there was I can't remember where I read it that the Ijaws it was a simple culture. It was a simple community where they lived a simple life. So it sounds like something when you say job man is truth, it just seems like a culture of, I don't want to say naive, but a culture that's not complicated so much. It's just a straightforward, simple culture. Would that be a fair assessment?
Well, that's just true because we I would say that the German is not that kind of a sophisticated kind of person that you have to knock at the door severally before somebody will come and open the door. It's just sociable, it's just accommodating, it's just friendly. That's the nature. They are hospitable people. They are very hospitable. Back in the days, growing up in the village, find out that they will bring their dinner table at the center of the compound, and the wives in the compound in that quarter will bring the food, and they will eat together, drink together, wine together. That's the culture of the German. So if you look at generality of the tribes, or nationality, let me use the word nationalities in Nigeria, you find out that the German it has a shining light because he's very hospitable, he's kind and generous, and that's what it is. So I just
Okay,
want to
so
bring
let's go
that
back to
aspect.
my question that you did haven't answered yet. How the Ijaws were not sold into slavery, or were they sold into
I
slavery?
think part of it, if that research is true, I think part of it could be this attribute that I've just expressed. Because we are godly, why should we sell our own children or our own people for money? I think I don't really have the fact, but
Okay.
I could
owing to
come
the
in.
fact that we are godly people, we are um, God fearing, and we are truthful. The betrayal culture is not part of the Ijaw nation. It is
Okay.
only nowadays that you are finding that in some quarters, but it's not part of us. I think if I'll take that as a basis to say that that was the primary reason why they didn't go into that.
Okay,
But
they didn't sell. Why do you
also
think they didn't sell?
going further, the slave trade was something that was also pronounced in the Niger Delta. So
Which is
by
our
by
place?
eh?
Which is our place?
Yes, which is our place. So it was pronounced in the Niger Delta. So by extension, we could say that some of our brothers are here too.
Could I come in?
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm also a Ijaw researcher. So when the Portuguese came down the coast, because the Portuguese were the first to start the whole Atlantic slavery business. They came down the coast, and they first got to the Escravos Oprosa side, and then they moved down a little bit. They got to Kula, the Ijaw town called Kula. That one is documented by the Portuguese, and they said when they got there, they had a hostile reception. So the people didn't receive them. I think they were forewarned that these people were hostile in nature. So the Kola Ijaw people drove them away. Hmm? But
Okay.
subsequently, the Portuguese and other uh, Europeans managed to come in. What they did in originally, what they did, they raided the peaceful coastal communities, and then after some time, once those communities found out the nature, they put up resistance. So the only way they could actually do business was to form some form of partnerships.
Okay.
So the other Europeans, they now went into partnership with other Ijaw communities like Nembe, that is Brass, uh, Okrika, Boni, Kalabare. So those are the slave trading states, the city states
Okay.
that actually engaged in the slave trade,
Who
and
did they sell?
they received um, they received slaves. They received captives. I wouldn't call them slaves, but captives from the interior. Mm?
Okay.
So what happened? What happened was that there was a disruption in socio-economic life, and then it now spread into the interior. So I think Ijaw people were quickly able to adapt and resist and defend themselves. So they were now in a position of being middlemen instead of being
Okay.
captives. Mm?
Okay.
But I also had a book by the history of Trakri by one Niekete in 1939. And he talks about the slave trade period where Ijaw communities, various towns and villages, everybody had to arm themselves to the fully, and occasionally there were raids on different communities. So it's not as if Ijaw people didn't raid themselves. There was occasional raids,
Okay.
gangs like criminal gangs. Men formed themselves into criminal gangs and raided some communities and sold them off. They said because of that, everybody had to arm themselves before you could travel from one part of the Niger Delta to the other. But in general, Ijaw people they successfully managed to stave off uh, general enslavement. But they now became middlemen, and especially the Igbos. The Igbo people, they were selling a lot of uh, their people to the city states. Likewise, the Yorubas weren't selling to Ijaw; they were selling their own in Lagos somewhere, but
Okay.
mostly and other people from the interior. So if you read some of these documents, you find out that these people were were captured from the interior and then they were brought down and now sold to the Ijaws and other people as middlemen who were now sold them to the Europeans. But
Okay.
we still have evidence of Ijaw people in the Caribbean, at
Yeah.
least a
And in
language.
Brazil.
Yeah. So in uh, um, South America, some parts of South America,
Yep.
there's lots of survivals of Ijaw language.
Yep. That's true.
Even in Jamaica itself, there's some survival of Ijaw
That's true.
language. So there was, but we were the first. We encountered the Europeans the first, and we were victimized the first. But we quickly overcome that victimization, managed to defend ourselves, and then some of our stronger city states formed themselves into middlemen and acted as and sold the interior people. So that's what happened.
Okay.
So
Anybody
uh,
else want to add anything?
Yeah, just a little listen. As a matter of fact, part of some of the history of what happened then, we are still suffering today. The Europeans are not happy with us at all because of these fights. We resist them. Ijaw people resisted their coming in. And if you see what oil exploration is doing in our place, some people ask the question, wait a minute, oil is explored here. How come this place is not as developed? British people will not forgive us. They will not forgive us. In fact, after this talk, I'm going to mail to you a document that was signed between my village and Niger Delta Company. You will not believe it. Very, very condescending document. As a result of the hostility, they did not like the German at all because of our resistance. That's part of it. But then slave trade, Ijaw people up till now, I can remember very clearly in the 60s when I was there was an Ijaw family where they go to the interlands to buy slaves, especially amongst the Igbos. There's a family that they have these beautiful girls. I mean, very pretty girls, but nobody would marry them because they were children of slaves in my village. But then I think it was in the 70s, one of the guys, Ijaw guy, he broke that jinx. He said, "You know what? I can't see these beautiful women around here and leave them alone." So he broke into their decision and started, he married one and then other people joined. So there are still some people in the the villages around us there whose roots were slaves from neighboring tribes.
Okay.
Now, in terms of slave trade amongst Europeans, I think that is a matter of concentration, and it also there are dual things that happen. One, they were collecting slave through wars. They would go, people would just raid places, anybody they capture, they sell. So those type of groups, you cannot record them. You
Okay.
don't record them. So there will be no record of that group because they just pick people randomly. But the trade itself, like our brother alluded earlier, I don't believe Ijaw people really wanted to trade out their people. So that was one of the reasons I believe we were not 100% involved in that slave trade. But if you go to the western side, the Igbo land, as you go towards Calabar area, they were more and more into the slave trade.
All right. Presido, you have anything? I see you inching forward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about external trade, but just to piggyback on what Oga Lawrence said, I mean, I think when I was growing up in the village, the few years that I spent, and I know in my village, OD, there was a family that you 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 didn't play with, or they didn't value them as much because there was always the rumors that you know they're slaves that were brought in, and so there was a little discrimination back then. So which goes to show you that children don't hate. It's the parents that teach them to hate. Because parents don't say anything. If there was no rumors, you would know. So I just wanted to point that out. That even though as I was growing up, there was family that said, "Hey, that family is that they're slaves." So
Okay. So, Mike, oh,
Yeah, thank you. Even in our community, in Baramatu, we find out that there were slaves that were brought in. They bought them, and they become part of our community. I think there's still a family there today that we can recognize. Given one of our elders got married to that lady and gave birth to children, and the family is going like that. So it's just to attest to the fact that these things really happen, and our people, just like you said, they were not given to that cruel act of selling our own brothers for slavery and money and all that. So,
okay.
yeah.
So there was something that Binaibi said. He said you mentioned the word city states, and that brings me to our Nigerian history. So in our Nigerian history, there is Benin Kingdom. There's so much about Benin Kingdom. There is the Edo, Yoruba Kingdom, Songhai Empire, and all that. We learned that in school. Even the Igbos, I think the Igbos had some form of kingdom thing going on there. But there's no particular. The only record I found about the Ijaws was more of it was a clan ruled society. So they had clans, and each clan will have like a chief. Then they didn't have like a cohesive kind of kingdom thing. It was more like so. Could you please enlighten us on that?
City states. Yes, I mentioned the city states, and those are clans that formed. They became city state kingdoms. There are Ijaw clans that became city state kingdoms. Yes, Ijaw, we didn't have what we call one centralized city state, but according to ancestral tradition, we were all at one time in the central delta at a place called Agadagbabo, the lost city of Ijaw.
Can you
And
speak up a bit, please?
yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
But the early part of our history, there was a point where we were more or less in a central location before we split up. So for various reasons, people started migrating out of those central points, and they now form their little
Clans.
clans and kingdom. And I think it's not necessarily because we're incapable of doing so, but because of the riverine nature of the environment
Ah,
that caused it to be like that. But we had the institutions of kingship. So
okay.
in most of the clans and kingdom, we have their traditional kings, the Perez, uh, uh, the and or the Alabos, the various people who rule. So, um, for example, we're talking about Baramautu. We have the period of Baramautu. Um, we have the period of Arugbo. We have the Amanyanabo of Boni, the Amanyanabo of Kalabare, Amanyanabo of Nembe, the period of Kabo. All these are uh, kings in their own right. Mm?
Oh,
So they're not chiefs, those chiefs. They're actually kings, and but it's just the environment dictated the way we formed our own communities. So because of the delta creeks and crisscrossing and everywhere, we formed autonomous communities.
okay.
So we recognize ourselves as one people, but we had a we have some form of semi-independent nature where everybody you fell under several ancestors. You trace
So do you
yourself
think
to.
that has affected the development of the Ijaw nation?
No, I don't think that was the reason for that affected the development. I think the reason, as Lawrence pointed out, was that because of our our interactions with the Europeans and finally with the British, we were the ones who signed the treaties that went into form the treaties that were presented at the Berlin Conference. So we signed those treaties, and we're having like a very a resistance against their incursions,
Okay.
and because of that, when they finally formed the colony called Nigeria, they kind of like punished us for our insolence, so to speak. So development was taken out of. You should understand, like for example, Forcados was one of the first places where they set up colonial administration before
Okay,
it was,
that's true.
yeah, it transferred to Calabar, and then to Lagos, and then so forth. So it is our interaction with the Europeans and what we felt that we didn't really concede ourselves. We didn't concede our sovereignty to Britain. We signed friendship treaties of friendship and protection, mm? But we were like conned into becoming a part of a colony. And
Okay.
because of our interaction with the Europeans, they felt that we couldn't trust these people with colonial government. So we handed over to people that they could trust. And that was the reason why we were sidelined. Hmm? But it's not
Okay.
really because of our nature, because we had those kingdoms, and those various kingdoms exist. It's not like the Benin Kingdom. I think the only kingdom in Nigeria, there's only a few of them in Nigeria that are centralized. Even Yoruba is not centralized.
That's
Igbo
true.
is not Igbo is not centralized. Only Benin and maybe the Sokoto Caliphate
Yeah,
and
And
uh,
the
and
the the
and Bornu.
Shekuris.
Yeah, they are the ones that the Shekri is just maybe like a clan. It's
Yes,
not more
but they
than
are centralized too.
yeah, it's not more than a clan. Baramantu is centralized. It has only one pere.
Yeah.
Baramantu are more than the Shekris.
Yes,
So
true.
so Shekri is very small. So I wouldn't understand how they could even form so many kingdoms out of a Shekri when it's just a small, no more than one clan of Ijaw.
Okay.
So that's the reason.
So so um let's move forward. Politically speaking, okay, so there has been consequences for the actions of our forefathers, and that has affected the development of the Ijaw nation, Ijaw land. Let's flip over to the politics, because for decisions to be made, there has to be a political. You have to have access to sit at the table. So, politically speaking, what do the Ijaws need to do to be able to have a voice at the table?
Can I come in there?
Yes.
Okay. First and foremost, we need to have responsible leadership. What I mean by that is,
Nigeria as a whole needs responsible leadership.
yes, but I'm talking of Ijaw Nation now,
Okay.
because we are talking Ijaw national issues.
Mm-hmm.
The, the fact remains that a lot of monies are coming into the Niger Delta and by implication, the Ijaw Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And these monies are meant to develop the Niger Delta, especially the Ijaw Nation, who produce a lot of oil resources that is financing the Nigerian state.
Yes.
So, and our leaders are the ones receiving this money on behalf of our people.
When you say our leaders, are you referring to the Ijaw leaders?
I'm talking of Ijaw leaders.
Okay.
Yeah, so those monies are supposed to be used towards the development of our communities, our villages, and our town, especially those communities that produce the oil resources.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you find out that that is not what happens. You find out where a crop of Ijaw leaders will be the custodian of those money, and they spend it, and nobody is saying anything. And sometimes when you are vocal and you
They
begin
bribe
to
you up.
say, yeah, like you begin to say, why are these things happening? You now look, the community is such that they look at you as somebody who is anti-government. You know, they look at you as anti-government, anti-community. There is this. It's like our value system is such that when you see someone that have money, you don't want to talk. You just swallow your breath and then allow that person to continue to thrive, even though the person is doing what you know that is not the right thing. There is this fear that if I say something, the community might banish me, might call me different types of name, and all those things are what is happening. I know what I'm talking about because
Okay.
I have experience of what I'm talking about. So
Okay. Let me have somebody else chime in. Uncle Lawrence,
Yeah,
Presido.
let me come in there. And I I have taken some time on this for a while, and to look at some of these problems. That the way forward was your question. Is that correct?
Yes, like how do
Okay.
we get a seat at the
Yeah.
political table?
In a society, the nucleus of any society is the family. And when the family is not stable, it enters the community, and then from the community enters, it widens up to the town level, then the whole society. Our lifestyle was greatly interrupted. It was interrupted when this oil exploration came in. It was interrupted when the larger part of Nigeria were beginning to look towards us for resources and money. Up till now, we've not been able to answer that question. Added to that, we also did not hold on to our cultural roots very well. I
Okay.
believe in the spirit of sowing and reaping. These leaders that my brother just talked about, how did they become leaders? They were not trained. They did not have any leadership skill. We're like crabs in a bucket, just fighting. Anybody that manages to get to the surface become the leader. and he will do things the way he wants. Many of them don't even follow constitution. They just do things. So we are not sowing the appropriate foundations in our culture. We've not integrated it properly. So the leaders that are coming in are not following any norms. They are just doing things the way they want. And that is where we want to start. We want to start by sowing the right seeds from primary level, when or at the family level, even before they start schooling process. We should start sowing seeds. If you want to become a leader, these are the things that people in this area would want to see in the leader. When that is drilled into that person's head, right from infancy all the way up, you become a leader, then we start seeing some of the results that we are looking. So, interruption of our culture, which is continuous. There was a time even Ijaw girls followed the fray. Oh, they don't want to even see Ijaw men. They were just following this outside. So they are the ones with the money. And we're having, that is a big interruption in our culture. So when people start migrating and mixing up with other tribes, what happens to the core culture? It becomes a problem. And up till now that I'm talking with you, nothing has been done in the village setting. And one very important area that I want to bring in here, you find out that Ijaw people have problems teaming up to do things. If you call 3, 4, 5 Ijaw people to do something, very soon they will scatter. Benaibi, I know we are meeting for the first time here, but you know some of those things that we had in the early days of Ijaw Nation, all those arguments. You see, so he is a person who has been interacting in Ijaw Nation. I've been there too. So we go through that problems. We don't agree on anything. Why? Because we don't have a common consensus on these are the core values.
Okay, so let me interrupt you here. Let me rephrase what I think I'm hearing you say. So are you saying, are you suggesting that the Ijaws do not have a sense of loyalty to community? They don't have a sense of loyalty to the Ijaw nation as a whole?
They have, but the thing is fragmented now because we allowed interruption. Okay. Let me give you some history. When I was a young person in Asamabri, do you know how we reprimand people who do bad things?
How?
Have you guys heard of the singing reprimand? People from one segment of the town will be singing songs, and they use that songs to abuse another group. And then that group will also come up with something. That's a way of correcting and putting the norms of the villages in those days. And when somebody steals, there are ways that they don't have like the court system or the prison system, but they have a way of correcting people who do those things. But all those cultures are gone now. So you see people who just behave any kind of. Do you know that we have kidnappers now in our villages? That's because of interruption. We have not been able to hold that core culture and preserved it. Right now, as we are talking here, I can see little bits of history here. Benabi brought some, Samson brought some, and Edmond did. But then you can see that the things that we are saying are little bit here, little bit there, little bit there, little bit there. We don't, like right now, I'm talking about arranging for a library in my village so that some of these things we record them. No libraries. You don't have libraries where you can access and get core information about our people. So those are some of the things that I'm talking about. Let me yield to other people, and then I'll come later on. Thank you.
Okay.
I think going forward, we need leadership, not just leadership with vision, because we are still operating from the way we were operating 40 years ago. When I say leadership, when I was in OD secondary school, okay, they gave this contractor money to build the school. And what he did was every weekend, he will throw a party for the community. And everybody drinks and enjoys the food and enjoys the music. I mean, I didn't know anything then. And, you're just having fun. But he's using the money to build a school to throw a party and keep him part of it. And then the principal and other people organizes the community. And even though I think the classrooms were mud schools and the offices were brick, it was the town that came together to build that school. 40 years later, they may have built that school, but the roof leaks. Did the town come together to go fix the roof? No, they didn't fix it. They're waiting for government to fix it. Why? So nobody wants to sacrifice anymore to say, okay, we're going to do it for our children and do something better for the next generation.
So that brings me to I think I asked this question earlier. Is it that there is a lack of a sense of belonging, a sense of loyalty, or?
I mean, you're the psychologist, so I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go into a lane, but I'll throw my 2 cents into it. When you've been beaten up so much, you're expecting things, but you've been beaten up so much and nothing comes true for you. Eventually, you're just in a mirage, and even though you should get involved, you don't get involved. Say, hey, anytime I talk to people back home, say, hey, this is going on, and I send them stuff. They say nothing changes. It's just talk. Nobody gets involved. And, when was the last time I always email, does the government have a budget? Yes. Have you looked at it? No. What's going to happen? The government has a budget, but do we hold the governors and everybody accountable to that budget? Nobody does. I mean, I don't know if they do, but I don't think they do.
You're trying to go into my next question.
So if the good governance says you have to be transparent, okay? Even the World Bank is now trying to force Nigeria to post a budget. I can type in here and see how much Nigeria is spending on a daily basis because they track it. And World Bank will find contractors who don't adhere to World Bank policies. So if you push that down to all the villages and the states and say, okay, this is your budget, this is what you are spending, people need to know what's going on, transparency.
So that would suggest a national, for lack of a better expression, cultural corruption nationally, not just.
It's not. It starts from me, everybody. Okay, if when I'm here, I behave. When I go to Nigeria, I haven't gotten out of the plane yet. The custom person say, "Hey, what can you bring for me now?" If you are in a hurry, you give them something. But should you? You shouldn't give them something. You shouldn't give that person something. You're just coming to Nigeria, and you should be welcome. But the person says, "Hey, what can you bring for me now?" You haven't gotten out of the plane. What can you bring for me now? And if you're in a hurry, you just give them something. So
emphasizing my point.
If we start as a people say, okay, I'm not going to do it, and then you start pushing forward, then it will change. But everybody does it in one way or the other. You say, hey, you may not do it in a big way, but every small step that you do, you're contributing into it. And if you take a class here, you take an ethics class. And so there's morality involved in it. Is there any morality or ethics class involved in leadership in terms of governance in people? So if you look at South Korea or Singapore, some of those places, back in the 60s, we were all the same. How did they get so far ahead of us? Somebody was telling a joke on one of this WhatsApp forwarded message, and the person said, hey, if you give somebody from Indonesia a contract, they might have 10% to help buy furniture for their house and then finish the project. But if you give a Nigerian project to do, he's not going to take 10% to buy furniture. He's going to take 90% of the money and only spend 10 and leave 10%
But
for the project.
but I want to focus on Ijaw. I don't want to focus
I
on.
know. It applies to the job. It's applied to the job. So
Okay, NIB, I see.
let's talk about Bayelsa. I'm going. The Port Arthur airport doesn't even run well. Why is Bayelsa building an airport? And that wasn't even finished.
Okay, President, I'm going to cut you off here
Yeah. So I'm done.
Okay.
because you're NIB.
Let me come in. I was fortunate to do a lot of some schooling in Nigeria. Back in the time when in Ijaw land, when it was a little bit, everything was a little bit sane. There was one principal of the teachers training college, Bamodi at the time, one Bribena, and he was a typical Ijaw man who was everything was about truth. And as the principal, he built so much structures in that teachers training. You know, if he didn't have money, he would mobilize students to uh, uh, do the material, and he will build an extra classroom here and there. And then when he was made a local government chairman, the first local government chairman of Sagbama local government, he built the first secretariat, which they're still using till now. And after his structures, nobody has added. So from his time, everything has been going downwards. So I think what's really happened is that as a people, we're in a negative, what we call a negative cycle.
A negative slope down.
Yeah, a negative cycle, and it's a little bit difficult to come out of it. And people mentioned about leadership, and you talked about sitting at the table. I think we have a seat at the table, but the people who are representing us don't know how to use it. So they're using it for their own selfish purposes. So instead of having an Ijaw caucus in the National Assembly, everybody's on their own. They're not doing anything, and everybody's just working for themselves. So we do have a seat at the national table, but we're not utilizing it properly, and that's because of the lack of what we call it the leadership. And the average Ijaw person who calls himself a leader does not have a does not have any idea about his people, how his people came about,
Aha.
so forth.
That's
So,
right there is my next question. So I think you're going to continue on my next question. My next question is, so the average Ijaw man of today, what should that average Ijaw man be focused on? You want to take it up from there, NIB?
okay, yes. Some of us are in the process of trying to rebuild the culture that we're fast losing, and kind of set up to make us fit for the 21st century, the century that we're living in and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So we've studied places like China, especially the Far East, all those people who have leapfrogged, and you find out that they've dipped into their old cultures first to reinforce their own identity as a people. So what the first thing you have to do, you have to remove what we call inferiority complex.
Okay.
And you only do that by studying your own culture and taking out the best of it. So as at the average Ijaw person is supposed to, from primary school up to university, have a 100% knowledge of his people, his
His
culture
heritage.
and heritage. That's been missing. People have believed that they can make do without having it. They can study, they know about Greek philosophers, but they don't know about how their village was founded and so forth. And then these people, they are pushed into positions of leadership, and then they start having arguments with people from other villages, believing that they're different people. So first and foremost, you need to have understanding of your Ijaw people as a people, your culture, your language, and the various languages, and then all the other trappings of modern day education. You add it together, you form you can create a formidable type of people.
Okay.
So yeah, so even if you're living in the dias outside your land, it's your duty as a parent to teach your children your culture, at least give them the basics of the language, give them a sense of pride of being a an Ijaw person, first
Okay.
and foremost. Then
Okay.
they'll take it. That's the same thing that my dad did. I wasn't born in Ijaw land.
All right. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
think
uh,
one, we've got to do education because the way I look at it is, even with our forefathers, if they were educated, when they signed those contracts, they would have said, "Hey, I signed 1% to maintenance of the land or development of the land." Okay?
Mhm.
My mom didn't have a high school or college degree, but and my dad didn't have either. But he foresaw that, hey, education is going to get you somewhere, and all six of us have college or master's degrees. They pushed us. Okay, so one, there's got to be education, and two, I go with the philosophy of how the Jews or the Israels um, deal with their communities. No matter where they are, Russia, uh, America, wherever a Jewish person is, even though they've gone or they didn't grow up in Israel, they believe at least either once a year or in their lifetime, they've got to go back to Israel. And they, whatever monies they make, all kinds of projects, they direct their funds back home to develop their funds. And they also leverage the government of where they are to say, hey, you have to send money to Israel. We're the smallest around that Middle East. We got to survive. So we've got to do the same thing. And we are here in DC, and we've got this association, but we have no link to whatever um, monies or funds that any of the agencies have. USAID has one of the biggest programs. And if you follow USAID, most of the programs are going to East Africa.
Wow.
They believe West Africa has money or Nigeria has money, so very few. The programs that are going to Nigeria is very few. So people are educated and they know what to do. So we've got to leverage that and help fund um, projects back home.
Okay.
Education projects back home, even if you're not going back home, at least send resources back.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
uh, just a very quick interruption, addition here. The education part is fine. There are a lot of leaders we have there that are educated, but then the type of education is also very necessary. Um, there's a saying in the teaching field: you don't teach what you don't know. So all they are doing still is they just uh, jumble a lot of the Western principles and maybe some other ones from some other bigger tribes. And then they use that as a basis for forming our universities. If you go to the universities in Ijaw land, for instance, right now, you will not see that the curriculum is Ijaw-centered curriculum. And that's what we need to do. We know our environment. So when we are writing the curriculum, we should write it in a way that we benefit the elite, the education community, and the society should be working one in one. Do research. Some villages are falling. What do we do to stop it? Those are things that they should research and come up with solutions, and then society around our areas will benefit from that. I just pulled out one document. Uh, I can't print it here, but let me just read something. And this is very telling. We also give to the said National African Company. This is the European company that was functioning around. This is a treaty. Full power to settle all native disputes arising from any cause whatsoever, and we pledge uh, ourselves not to enter into any war with other tribes without the sanction of the National African Company. This is a company coming from foreign land. I mean, I will send you this document when I finish.
Okay.
And one other thing, we also understand that the said National African Company uh, have full power to mine, farm, and build in any portion of our country. This is an Ijaw treaty
Wow.
signed with Europeans. You see, they are not educated. These people just came in there, wrote out this thing to their benefit, and gave it to our chiefs and leaders in the villages, and then they signed these things. This document, let me tell you the year it was signed. This was 19, let me see, February the 23rd, 1885. This
Wow.
document I'm reading to you. So these are things that were happening. Now, today, contemporary Ijaw people who went to universities, is it not time that we sit down like we are sitting down now and say, okay, there are some things that we are good with our culture. Let's pick them up. Let's work with them. Let's use them to benefit our people. Hold those conferences, hold those meetings in the villages, and then our culture will be revamped. We revamp the culture to what it used to be. Then we will all benefit from it. But the way we are still going, we are mixed up, interrupted. We don't have a core.
It
That
gets
is
a
the
point where
problem.
you have to interrupt the cycle. That's it.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I see time is well spent, and oh, I wish we could cover a whole lot. We may have to do part two of this. Um, so final word. Final. So for people watching, be it a young Ijaw man, be it somebody who is not Ijaw, just another Nigerian tribe person watching, whatever the case is, or people in diaspora watching, what final words do you want to share? And I give everybody. You make it like 2 minutes, 3 minutes ish.
Okay, let me do my final word. I've not spoken for some time. I'm going to take it. Yeah. So what I want to say is that there is a big challenge. I spoke about leadership as one of the primary challenge for Ijaw Nation. Um, I'm glad that every one of us also key into that, and we're talking about leadership here. My final word would be that when former President Goodluck Jonathan was in government as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Ijaw Nation was so happy that we have our own in government. That being there, he was gonna use his political will and power to drive development in Niger Delta, by implication, the Ijaw Nation.
But he did it.
And we know that, so what?
He did it.
And we
Well,
know that, he tried his possible best. Why I'm saying so is because when he came out, he said that yeah, he is out of the prison, sort of something. So that is to tell you that he was not really free when he was there to
Okay.
really drive development project that he would have done. But there was something that I get
But his wife built
to.
a big old hotel in Yena Yenagua. But that's besides the point. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so but I want to say something quickly. It was said that the Ijaw people were coming to Goodluck Jonathan as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And there was this school of thought that said that everyone that was coming for his own pocket. Everyone that was coming for his own personal project.
2 minutes.
Everyone that was coming for his own personal agenda. So at a point, the president was forced to say, ah, but who are the people representing Ijaw Nation? I want to relate. There was a school of thought like that. And the president was disappointed that everybody coming was after their own, but they are not looking at the holistic development of the Ijaw Nation.
Okay.
So by that, I'm trying to say that if that is quote unquote true, I'm saying that my closing remark would be that let us holistically think about the Ijaw Nation and do what we know we can do to develop the Ijaw Nation.
Okay.
If Nigeria divide tomorrow, the only place where we fall back to is the Ijaw Nation. I don't have another place than Ijaw. Ijaw is my nationality.
Mm-hmm.
So every one of us should have that mindset and think on what we can do to develop Ijaw Nation. And God spoke to me while I've been taking Ijaw matter so seriously. God spoke to me, said, anyone that carry Ijaw national affairs on his shoulders, he himself will see to it that that person is blessed. So that is my motivation.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, can I have my 2 minutes?
Yep.
Yeah, Ijaw people are an ethnic nation in its own right. We have to reinvent ourselves, go back into our cultural norms, and recreate our identity as a successful people. And if we want to get the right type of leaders that can do that, we have to start from scratch.
Okay.
And we need to set up the types of leadership institutions. And by setting up leadership institutions with the right curriculum, we will produce the leaders that can help us deliver us into a place that we're supposed to be. Whether if we want to be like a Singapore, or whether we want to be like the United Arab Emirates, these are the same type of environments that are fragmented kingdoms that came together and produced the miracles that people are talking about today. So each of people can do that. We just have to reinvent ourselves. So we haven't. I don't think we lost any hope. There's always hope. We just have to be dedicated. And as our brother said, you are dedicated to uplifting your people. You are blessed. Fortunately, I've been in the arena of trying to uplift Ijaw people. I've interacted with the good locks and all the rest of them. I know the good and the bad and the ugly. So I'm not giving up. I just say that we just have to reinvent ourselves
Okay.
and deliver it. It may not be in our lifetime, but it just has to be carried on
Start
until,
working towards it.
yeah, you work towards it. So that's my little piece.
All right. Two of you left. Last words.
Gallo, if you want to go.
Oh, yeah, sure. My words are a re-echo of what Benabi just said, and a little addition. Yes, we have to build leadership institutions. That's very, very important. Where before you become leaders, you go through that institution. That way you will know what the people collectively want. So when you get those offices of commissionership or presidentship, presidency or whatever, you will know exactly what these people want from you. So right now, people are just doing their own thing because we don't have a consensus. We don't have a common thing that we are looking for in our area and handed over to them before they take these offices. So we need to do that. And then the part that has been eroded in our culture. We need to revisit that. We need to go back and rebuild those institutions. I know it has gone very far, but only when we are dead. As long as we have life, there's still hope. Um, for one thing, those of us who are in foreign lands, I would suggest that we begin to transfer some of the good things that we have learned back home, interact with the home people. Like in my village, we opened a forum, a WhatsApp forum, and you will not believe the number of things we have achieved in these 2 years that that forum was formed. Different problems that they've been going through, we give them perspective. People who have been stealing, government bring projects, they just divide the money among themselves. We reprimand them right there on the forum. I'll give you an example. Somebody stole, there's oil communities, contractors, allowance that they pay my town, for instance. Somebody takes it and he walks away with it. So we said, no, that's not right. Those in the village, they intimidate them. So we said, no, return that money. You cannot do that. And you know what? The guy returned it. If we didn't put our voice, he would have taken it away. That's what they've been doing. So those of us abroad that have we are now joining multiple cultures. We are more enlightened. Call back home. Open a common place where people can hold conversations and begin to address some of these things. And then the change that we are looking for, it will gradually begin to evolve.
Amen.
A very father.
A very father.
I mean, I think everybody's talking about leadership. We need leadership with vision. And it's not just leadership. It's leadership, though Trump is a bad example. You want that the type of leadership where people will follow. Say, hey, this guy is going to do something for us, and they follow and believe in you. But you don't, and that person has a vision to make us a better place. And one of the issues we have as a people, we look at, we value the person. You shouldn't value the person. You should value the position and what the position does. And if that person doesn't deliver what that position does, we should be able to say, hey, do what we want you to do and kick that person out. And not just believe in that person and say, hey, he got that position, so whatever he says goes. No, it doesn't go. There should be accountability, and we should hold people accountable. We don't.
Okay.
So we don't. We gotta hold people accountable, and we gotta be transparent in what we're doing. I mean, just like what Guy Lawrence said, they're in a position where they know what projects have been done, and they know how much is going to be spent. And if that's not been spent, somebody's screaming. So we gotta do this. We gotta have transparency, and we gotta scream if people are not doing stuff. I mean, those are just the little stuff, but the bigger stuff. The bigger stuff is there's gotta be leadership with a vision. We gotta hold them accountable, and then we have to think of the next generation. Okay, we may have a lost generation. We have to start from the scratch and say, hey, this next generation, we want to make sure they have the morals and the ethics to say, hey, these are the good stuff that we do through education, through communication, whatever it is. I mean, I don't know if you're in it. I'm in Ijaw Nation on Facebook, and
I think I am in it.
Every day they talk about what does this mean in Ijaw? What does that mean in Ijaw? Somebody will answer. Guess what? It's a simple app. Nobody's put an app together. Somebody could put an app together and say, hey, this is Southern Ijaw, this is Western Ijaw, this word means this in that places. So if you don't know how to speak Ijaw, you just do the app. You say, hey, what does this mean? And what does it mean in English? but nobody's taking up that project. That would bring Ijaw people together. It's an app. Can we come up with $50,000, $60,000 to build an app to put the Ijaw language together? I know there's a Bayelsa University that had an Ijaw department, but nobody's putting an app together. So we that are overseas that knows the technologies available, we gotta be able to now transfer that knowledge and say, hey, maybe there's an app my children or my grandchildren can learn Ijaw using an app.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
I think we can do that together. What do you think?
Yeah, that's something we definitely can look into, because we're going to have this conversation offline.
You can do an app by yourself.
We're going to have this conversation offline. But I want to thank you guys for participating. And obviously, we will have to do a part 2 of this, because there's so much more we can cover regarding moving forward and impacting the now generation. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys.